You were running on this idea of a universal basic income, which is giving every American $1,000 a month. And are you worried that because you're polling higher, that as other candidates get desperate, they'll start offering $1,100 a month?
Well, that would be a version of victory, Seth. I've said for a while that I'm either going to win or the other candidates are going to sound a lot like me.
I've put things out into the world that I've noticed other candidates a couple weeks later saying, almost verbatim.
We're automating away the most common jobs in the economy right now.
As you know, automation is transforming our economy.
It's not this cliff that we're heading towards. It's actually more of a curve that we're on. What I've been telling people is that we're in the third inning now.
And we can't pretend that it can just be stopped or reversed.
If you look at it, technology is already doing a number on each of these jobs.
So it's not about stopping or reversing technology.
But it's going to be very, very bad for many people and communities. So we have to actually change the measuring sticks to something that would actually make our economy work for us.
It is about making sure that the tectonic social and economic changes that it could drive are changes that can actually work for us.
I was with Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, California. We're talking about universal basic income, which is another name this goes by. Raise your hand if you've heard of universal basic income.
There's an experiment going on right now in the city of Stockton with what's called universal basic income.
All right, so if you haven't now, you have. Universal basic income is just a policy where everyone gets a certain amount of money.
Where they're actually simply distributing payments to people to make sure that that income floor is lifted.
57% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 bill.
The idea is there are too many Americans who couldn't find even $400 in an emergency.
We have to accelerate both our economy and society and broaden our definitions of both work and value.
Maybe we ought to broaden our definition of work.
It's original, I'll give you that.
My wife is at home with our two boys, 6 and 3, one of whom is autistic. And what I say is like, what is her work valued at in GDP? And then people think about it and they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, 0.
If you are taking care of a parent or raising a child, isn't that work? And shouldn't we honor that too?
Because GDP doesn't consider that actual economic contribution.
They're just not in the formal kind of economy, the way that they're traditionally being compensated.
We have to change the way we measure progress in our economy.
We're going to change how we establish how the economy is growing.
We have to actually evolve from GDP as a measuring stick.
We're not going to measure it by abstract numbers like GDP.
We need to create new measurements that actually show how we're doing.
We're going to measure it by how the 90% are doing.
Things that matter to us, like childhood success rates, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, environmental quality, median income and wealth, proportion of elderly in quality care that can actually retire with dignity.
So in my administration, I will measure America's economic success based on your paycheck.
The indicators already show that we're falling apart.
Our country's in trouble.
How many of you get excited about GDP when you wake up in the morning?
GDP is going up.
America's life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years in a row.
And life expectancy is going down.
Most Americans are just tuning into 2020 right now. And most Americans are still finding out about me and the other candidates.
So now that it's starting to winnow down, people are starting to look for the contrasts. And I think it'll be important for me to convey how I'm different from the others. I like the others, I appreciate the others, I admire the others, but I'm not like the others. Right now, the gross domestic product is going up, and life expectancy is going down.
You sound a little bit like Andrew Yang.
One of my supporters said the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. And so that has been something of a rallying cry for me.
The American people, I think, are looking for the opposite of this president, and that's me.
The entire socialism-capitalism dichotomy, again, is out of date and is breaking down. We have to try and take the best of both worlds.
Look, I don't think that my positions are quite the same as any of the others, but...
You said that neither centrist versus leftist or capitalism versus socialism is the right frame through which to view liberal politics today. So
retrain, reskill, higher productivity work, economy grows, all is well, right? So that is what the macroeconomics textbook says. And then it turns out in real life, when you go look at the numbers of what happened to manufacturing workers in Michigan or Indiana, 40 to 44% of them left the workforce and were never heard from again.
When they do all the retraining things that well-intentioned center-left programs, like some of the ones I'm running in South Bend, tell them to do, they do all the right things, and they still see their standard of living declining.
You're not going to take 500,000 middle-aged men and turn them into coders or whatever ridiculous fantasy someone is peddling.
By telling a machinist 16 years into his career that from now on he's got to be a nurse's aide, and it's a perfectly good career, but it's not how he understands how he fits into the world.
This is the buzzsaw. This is capital and technology converging in historic ways.
Part of the story of why so many are being left behind has to do with the massive forces changing the world around us: globalization, technology, automation.
Our government has been decades behind in being honest about it and addressing it.
We are probably at the dawn of a new machine age, and yet we haven't really prepared for it in terms of our policies.
If we don't, some very negative and very ugly things, from
A massive surge in alcohol use and drug overdoses,
Depression,
and suicides and depression.
substance abuse to the worst kind of white identity politics.
So that's how I came to run for president, on a platform of universal basic income.
That's why we might even need to look at guaranteed income
In response to this incredible transition we're going through.
as a policy that will help smooth the edges of that.
So you put $1,000 a month into their hands.
Just give the family a little more cash.
Well, in addition to the front runners, we also got to know some of the underdogs. And early on, a lot of people noticed that one of them, Andrew Yang, wasn't wearing a tie. Take a look at this. Yeah.
And meanwhile, while Washington's arguing over who looked best on cable today,
So I'm meeting with various legislators in DC being like, guys, what are we going to do? We're in the third inning of the greatest economic and technological transformation in the history of the country. What is the plan? And what do you think they said to me when I said, what is the plan? There's no plan. They looked at me like I was speaking another language.
at a time when the world is moving faster than ever and our challenges are getting more urgent and more complicated than ever, Washington's ability to respond has gotten slower than ever.
So Donald Trump became president because he diagnosed correctly a lot of the problems, but his solutions are unfortunately totally backwards. His solutions are build a wall, turn back the clock, bring the jobs back.
The current White House and the campaign that got us here was the idea that we could somehow turn back the clock.
We're just not confronting it honestly.
It's not honest.
And what I'm saying is we have to move the clock forwards.
Well, that's a very good way of looking at it.
And it's just facts. A very, very data-driven man. The opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. That's why I'm gonna beat him in 2020. It's gonna be glorious.
Put the money in our hands. 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 Put the money in our hands.
Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.